and the Khulafa al-Masih, and every one of us who tread the path of righteousness the day of Qiyamah. Amen. Beloved brother, I say again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. This is another edition of the workshop of Majlis Qudam al-Ahmadiyya, Nigeria, and the theme of this year's workshop has been carefully chosen owing to the fact that one of the essential duties of every Muslim is to submit wholeheartedly to Allah. We are expected to follow strictly the injunction of Allah in the glorious Quran, as well as that of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is Nizāme-Islam. Respected brothers, let me remind us that the instruction of Asad Khalifatul Masih, Ayadahullah Ta'ala bin Aziz, as conveyed to us by our respected Amir Sahib after the conclusion of the Majlis Shura of the Nigerian Jamaat, is very clear from the Uzur Akdas that the Nigerian Jamaat should go and activate the Nizāme-Jama'at. And it is in this line we have carefully selected this particular and important topic that we tag the importance of Nizāme-Jama'at. Then, as members of this divine fold, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is expected that we pledge on support and adherence to the structure and administration of the Jamaat, as well as all the instructions and directives by the Khalifa of the time. Beloved brothers, Nizāme-Jama'at simply means the overall system or organization of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And the primary purpose of this Nazim or Nizam is to unite the true followers of the promised Messiah, alayhi salam, Hazrat Misa Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, in a worldwide brotherhood, so we can reform ourselves to real Islamic teachings and also to spread the message of real Islam throughout the world, and also to serve mankind for the sake and the pleasure of Allah the Almighty. Nizāme-Jama'at is a comprehensive term that consists of the Jamaat's aims and objectives under the traditional and cultural and moral and spiritual guidance, including worship, lifestyle, social interaction, ristanata, tarbiyah schemes, tabligh, financial sacrifices, social services, organizational structure, administrative processes and procedures, consultation, which we know as shura, and authoritative hierarchy, judiciary, which is qada, and many more. Dear respected Amir Sahib and respected brothers, the program promises to be very interesting because we have invited our respected scholars to speak to us about Nizāme-Jama'at. And it is important that I implore every one of us to be very attentive as we learn more about the Jama'at and the Nizam and the religion Islam. Remember, if you don't know about your faith, you cannot practice it better. That is why Rasulullah says, Allah told him that, seek for me, seek to know me. And for whoever that does not know me, he will not be able to worship me. So it is important that we understand Nizāme-Jama'at. It is when we understand it that we can do everything required of us to meet up with the expectation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to meet up with the expectation of the promised Messiah alayhi salam, and to meet the expectation of the Khalifa of the time. Once again, I welcome every one of us to this very important program. May Almighty Allah make it a fulfilling and prosperous one for every one of us. Jazakumullah khairan. Hasan Jaza. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan jaza. Respected Sadar Majlis Qudam al-Ahmadiyya, Nigeria, for that welcome remarks. So the next item is the chairman's opening remarks, which I would undertake before we go into the lecture itself. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna sayyidana Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu amma ba'd. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The respected Sadar Majlis Sudamullah Ahmadiyya, Nigeria, the respected Naibin Amir Online, the respected Sadar Majlis Ansarullah, Nigeria, the respected Maligin Mualimin, the Sagut President, the President, and the Majlis members all over Nigeria, all the participants, I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Today's topic and the theme of the national workshop is so important to me that I had the other engagement before, and I had to tell the Sadar Sahib that I'm going to attend this meeting because in May, when we did the Majlis Shura and we wrote the report of the Majlis Shura to His Holiness, who responded as part of the first phrase, for which you will have heard of, that Nigerian Jamaat, please activate the Nizāme-Jama'at, full stop. So what Uzur said is that we should activate the Nizāme-Jama'at. So it's not a reactivate or strengthen the Nizāme-Jama'at. So, but rather that we should activate the Nizāme-Jama'at. So, Sarah Sahib defined what the Nizāme-Jama'at is, which is simply the administrative system of the Jamaat. I will not delve into the details at this point because erudite scholars who has experience about it had been invited to speak. So after during the closing remarks, I will be able to make one or two comments if necessary. So let me welcome everyone to this program. It's a very strategic theme that you are choosing. May Allah bless you all. Grant you all the benefits of this program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum
salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Barakallah fi. So I have the pleasure of inviting Abdul Ghani Subambi to deliver his talk on significance of Nizāme-Jama'at. Sorry,
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So, Avisa, before you start, I want to advise everybody to please mute themselves while Avisa is talking, please. Don't let there be any disruption. Jazakallah khaira. So, Avisa, bismillah.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. إن تنازعتم في شيء فردوا إلى الله والرسول. I thank Amir Sahib for this opportunity, and I thank the organizers of this workshop, Majlis Sudamullah Ahmadiyya, Nigeria, for giving me the opportunity to talk on the topic of significance of Nizāme-Jama'at. The word Nizam means order or system. Nizāme-Jama'at, as simply put by the Sadar Majlis Sudamullah Ahmadiyya, the organizational structure or running system of the Jamaat through which members are guided, nurtured, and organized. Nizāme-Jama'at evolved from the promised Messiah والسلام, and continued to evolve through the Khulafa and will continue to evolve as long as Ahmadiyya community continue to remain on the surface of the soil. For anyone to be a true believer, reading through the Holy Quran, we know and we recognize that some demands are made by Almighty Allah which He expects the true believer to stand by. And that is why the verse or the verses that were recited by the person that opened this workshop, Quran, is very, very imperative to go by that verse, because it tells us of Allah's expectation of every member of Islamic community, more so the followers of the promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam. Nizam started with the noblest of man, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, which the Sahaba demonstrated to the amazement of the entire human race. So we understand that by taking bayat of the promised Messiah, it makes us liable to Nizāme-Jama'at, which means our obedience is required to Nizāme-Jama'at at all time. In the Holy Quran, chapter 24, verse 54, it's recorded that by taking pledge and by swearing that we have taken an oath by this, or we stand by that, the verbal statement, rather, Quran recorded it and said, La tuqsimu, don't swear, don't talk about your oath. What is expected of you is ta'atun ma'rufa, absolute obedience. So, brothers, it is absolute obedience that is expected from all khadim. Nizāme-Jama'at, at the same time, stands for the organizational structure of the Jamaat. It also stands for the hierarchical nature of Ahmadiyya community. It is a system through which unity is maintained and sustained in the organization of Ahmadiyya Jamaat. It also means a system that creates a framework of dissemination and implementation of education, information, support of members in accordance with Islamic teachings. Nizāme-Jama'at is also a system for global propagation of Islamic Ahmadiyyat. It is also an order or system through which members of Ahmadiyya community are to serve mankind with the pleasure of Almighty Allah. It is a folly for any member of Ahmadiyya community, more so we are talking to the Quran, so it is a folly on any khadim to think that he will operate or could operate outside Nizāme-Jama'at. If this is the case, then the essence of becoming a member or a follower of the promised Messiah والسلام, is null and void. Giving us examples from the terrestrial bodies to understand that systems that are put in place is to make things move smoothly. Almighty Allah in Surah Al-Anbiya says, Alam tara, anna Allah yazdudu lahu man fis samawati wa man fil ard, wa shamsu, wal qamar, wal nujumu, wal shajaru, wal dawabu, wa kathiru minan nas. That don't you see that everything submits to Almighty Allah, prostrate to Almighty Allah, whatever that is on the heavens and on the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, the trees, the animals, and even human beings. So a structure or a system has been put in place by Almighty God for all the terrestrial body and the celestial body. And if perchance they move outside that nizam, that system, then everything will crumble. Almighty Allah, through this verse, is telling the members and mankind at large to understand that whenever a system is put in place, what is expected is absolute obedience to that system. Nizāme-Jama'at also means official dealings with members regarding their financial requirement as a member and checks on their spiritual growth. We have three major organizational structures under Nizāme-Jama'at of Ahmadiyya community. We have Sadr Anjuman Ahmadiyya, Tahriki Jadid Anjuman, and Waqfi Jadid. Sadr Anjuman Ahmadiyya started in 1889 with the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam, while Tahriki Jadid started in 1934 through the second Khalifa of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. And same is Waqfi Jadid that started in 1957. These three offices manage the affairs of the Jamaat at the head, and at the head of these offices is the Khalifa, who direct the affairs of the Jamaat worldwide. And this is how the Nizam stands. It is to note that Sadr Anjuman Ahmadiyya we have of Pakistan, and that one of Pakistan takes care of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. While Sadr Anjuman Bharat of India takes care of India. The Tahriki Jadid Anjuman Pakistan takes care of Jamaat aside from Bharat, Nepal, and Bhutan. The Tahriki Jadid Bharat only take care of Nepal, Bhutan, and India. Waqfi Jadid is for the local rural areas of Pakistan. The secretaries under Sadr Anjuman are called Nazir, while the secretaries under Tahriki Jadid are called Wakil or Wakala. And under Waqfi Jadid, the secretaries are called Nizami. It is important to note that the Khalifa is the head of all these offices of the community. We fall under Tahriki Jadid, and Wakalatul Ulya takes care of the office responsibilities on the global nature . Alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
It's important to note that the Khalifa is the head of these offices of the community, while we fall under Wakalatul Ulya that takes care of the office responsibilities on the global nature. Takes care of reaching out to missionary activities through the missionary in charge and to all missionaries. Like Nigeria, we have the Amir at the head of the country, and we have a system of regional organizational system and local system. So the Jamaat is well catered for to the grassroots with this Nizam. It is a grace from Almighty Allah that each member can be able to be educated, trained, and at the same time have their spiritual checks. In the system of Jamaat Ahmadiyya, we have Majlis Mushawara, as was mentioned earlier by the Sadr Majlis Khudam Ahmadiyya. This body is a consultative body of members that they discuss and put their ideas to the Khalifa for final decision. They help the Khalifa in taking decisions on matters of their countries. Also, we have legal system put in place to douse down differences within the members or whatever arises among the members with the system of Qadha. We have Islamic Committee on reformative and on rectificational mode for members. We also have a marital system put in place known as Rishta Nata, so that we can cater for our members to continue to. If you read through what is happening in Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, because they have not sustained the way they manage, for example, is allowed only to have, but the government is now crying out that it should have more children. So there are two ways to make the Jamaat grow. And the second one is so that the Jamaat will grow in your house also, not bringing in members only. So Rishta Nata is a system whereby you put down the names of your children, eligible children to be married, so that the Jamaat will organize and you have members, reasonable members to marry your children, and the future of the Jamaat is also in very good light. Why are all these things put in place for members? What is the need? Founder of the community expect the community started by him and promised by God to flourish and become the best community in the system of the followers of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the framework was put in place. It is not a new framework. It had been put down by the noblest of man and the Sahaba, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the hallmark of those that were with the noblest of man, the Holy Prophet sallallahu then, I mean the Sahaba, was recorded in the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 286. وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا غُفْرَانَكَ رَبَّنَا وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. And they say, we hear and we obey. We seek thy forgiveness, O our Lord, and to thee is the end of all journey. A true believer will always say, when he's being guided, that we have heard all the rules and directives, and our response to this is that we have agreed to follow it. We seek forgiveness for our shortfalls, and to you is our final return. When such grand system is put in place, and anyone thinks he will interpret directives or instruction to his own taste, then misfortune and problem comes in place. We should remember that the bayat we hold, according to the promised Messiah, as when taking bayat from the members in the early stage, the first bayat that was taken, he admonished the Sahaba then. And this is why the 10th condition of bayat, and this is all what it's about the brotherhood that we come into, accepting the promised Messiah and announcing our readiness to follow instructions, and the brotherhood will be greater than any other brotherhood on earth. Let us read through the 10th condition of bayat. It is written and said that he that is signing the bayat should know he or she shall enter into a brotherhood with this humble servant, pledging obedience to me in everything good for the sake of God, and remain faithful to it until the day of his or her death, and that he or she shall exert such a high devotion in the observance of this bond as is not to be found in any other worldly relationship and connections that demand devoted dutifulness. This was the sermon delivered at Masjid Fazal, London, UK, on September 19th, 2003, by the current Khalifa. The promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam, says, only he enters my Jamaat who adopts my teachings as the code of his life and acts upon them according to his capacity and capability. The one who just gets his name registered but does not act according to the teachings should be mindful that Allah has decreed to make this Jamaat a special Jamaat. And anyone who does not truly belong to this Jamaat will not be counted among it just because he has registered. A time will come that he will dissociate himself. Therefore, as far as possible, make your deeds subservient to the teachings that is given. The significance of Nizāme-Jama'at, Quran, like I had given you in Quran chapter 24, verse 54, when you claim to be a follower of the promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam, don't stand on the bayat that you have signed. Rather, make yourself to become the true follower of the promised Messiah and follow instructions that are given by the officers of the Jamaat. The hypocrites, they swear by Allah, saying that when the Holy Prophet ﷺ gives them instruction to go for battle, they will go. But God reprimanded them and said, La tuqsimu, don't swear by this. Ta'atun ma'rufa. Whenever instruction is given, what is expected of you is absolute obedience in the right direction. So, brothers, as member of this noble majlis, you are expected to follow all instructions given by your leaders. The noblest of man, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, mentioned that to follow or to hear and to obey is absolute on every believer. There is another hadith in Muslims, that in Sahih Muslim, that said obedience is required during austerity and affluence. Either one understands or does not understand, one is to follow instruction. This was found in Hadith Muslim. The only time that you are given opportunity to say, I'm not going to follow, it is when you are given a directive that contradicts the Holy Quran or contradicts the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. The Sahaba made sacrifices in the time of the Holy Prophet, and they made the entire world to see what sort of followers they were. When instructions are given and some in their own locality sit down to give interpretations of their own understanding to that instruction, sometimes it brings unforetold chaos, destruction to the community at large. Let me take you through what happened when the Holy Prophet ﷺ commanded the Sahaba to stay on guard at a point at the Battle of Uhud. The Holy Prophet ﷺ took some Sahaba and told them to be on charge of that point and not to leave there at any cost. The Prophet told them to stay there, and the place was in between two mountains, and they should not move away from there at any cost until the next directive. Within a few minutes, when the battle started, the Muslim got victorious, and the Sahaba started taking booty of war, and the Kuffar of Makkah started fleeing from the battle. When those assigned to remain between the two mountains heard the voice of the victory, some of them raised their own voice and said, "We can leave this place now, since the victory has been earned by the Muslim." And some others says, the Prophet said we should not leave here at any cost. So those in favor of leaving the place left, while those who said we will adhere to what the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said remained. While Abu Sufyan was going or retreating with some of his cavalry, he now saw that point that is left open. While Muslims were rejoicing of their victory, he now attacked from that point, to the effect that many Muslims were killed. Even the noblest of man, the Holy Prophet ﷺ, was injured. The helmet that was on his head was attacked with sword and many other things, that it pierced his head and blood gushed out. It's at the same incident that he lost a tooth. This was when Sahaba were and say, I have this interpretation to the directive, which at the ultimate end might bring something that will the entire Jamaat will pay for more than necessary, is not allowed in the Nizāme-Jama'at. Remember, when the Sahaba were addicted to alcohol, and the law or the instruction on alcohol came, it was recorded that in Medina, some Sahaba were at a point taking alcohol in a place when this verse of restriction or prohibition on alcohol came. Then immediately they had that. One of the Sahaba that was with them taking the alcohol said, the person that brought the message, he said, who sent the message? Who gave you the message? When he mentioned that this was the revelation that was received by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that we should stop taking alcohol, they wanted to be saying or interpreting it that we should take this one, when we finish this one, then we obey or we follow the instruction. That Sahaba said, before you tell me anything again, since I have heard that this message was from the Holy Prophet ﷺ and it was a revelation to him, then all these pots of alcohol should be broken down immediately. And that's what happened. They said on that day, the streets of Medina was flowing with the alcohol that was broken from those pots. This was the absolute obedience, demonstrated by the Sahaba of the noblest of man, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to which the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasallam expected that the followers of his who are to match the same position with the Sahaba of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to demonstrate. And truly, the Jamaat witnessed this high degree of sacrifice. Once it was recorded that the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam was in Delhi. While in Delhi, he sent a telegram to Qadian, to Hazrat Hakim Nuruddin, to report to Delhi immediately. Immediately he received that telegram, he was in the chamber of his, where he does his physician job. Immediately he received it, he did not go back home. He just took his turban, put it on, and while has called me to come. He said, but go, because the telegram I received said I should report immediately in Delhi. Even the money for the transport was not taken by him. It was until he got to Batala and Hindu that the wife of the Hindu was sick, and there were some hours to the departure of the train, was the one that now Hazrat Hakim Nuruddin and said, please come and treat my wife that is sick. Since there was time for the departure of the train, he now he made prescription for the woman, which was bought and was attended to, and she was becoming all right. And the Hindu man now bought the ticket up to New Delhi and then gave Hazrat Hakim Nuruddin some money as thank to be gratitude to him, or to be grateful to him for what he did to the wife. So this was the extent of how Hazrat Hakim Nuruddin obeyed the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. The same spirit is seen among the those we know as Darwish. The Darwish were the 313 members selected because the second Khalifa in 1947 called for members to come and devote themselves for the protection of Qadian. When Pakistan was created in 1947 and the Ahmadis were to migrate to Pakistan, but since Qadian was where the Prophet Messiah started his ministry, all the things that are left there needs to be protected. So the second Khalifa called for people to come and be the security of those things that will be left behind. So 313 members were chosen among them, or selected among them, like the 313, those that witnessed the Battle of Badr. So they came and they were there and they did all they could to protect all the relics that were left behind. And till today, they are known as Darwish, and their name and their family still remain with golden letters in Ahmadiyya history. My dear brothers, we should know that Allah the Almighty says that we should obey. Sometimes they put some people as our leader. We might feel that they are not capable. We might feel that they don't have enough knowledge at the local level, at the regional level, at the national level. Yet, the direction of the promise of the Holy Prophet ﷺ is alaykum as-sam'u wa ta'a, that we are to listen and obey. The Arabs, they feel that they are better human beings than anybody. And that's why in one of the hadiths, the Holy Prophet said that alaykum as-sam'u wa ta'a, that you should listen and obey. Even if it is made as your leader, Abadan Habashiyun, an Ethiopian slave, and his head, he has nothing in the head. It's like a dry raisin. You should obey. You know that this is what. Before I close my lecture, I want you to understand that if you revert to the first stage before the emergence of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to start giving interpretation or saying that I'm from this group or that group, the unity of the community will be lost, because it's a means, Nizāme-Jama'at is a means of unification of members of the community, so that we globally, internationally, nationally, and regionally and locally, be able to follow a streamlined, guided rules that will make us useful members of the community and to humanity. My dear brothers, Nizāme-Jama'at comes in various forms for our growth, intellect, education, and morality. So it is incumbent on every one of us to be ready for that Nizam, to work on ourselves and work in our family and work in our Jamaat. May Allah enable us to follow the institution of Nizāme-Jama'at as directed by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, that we should activate Nizāme-Jama'at. It means that we should follow strictly the guided culture, principle, and rules of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat globally. May Allah make us recipient of His mercy at all times and bless our endeavors. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan jaza. Respected Hafiz Maulvi Abdul Ghani Shubambi Saab for that rendition, a very educative information you have provided on Nizāme-Jama'at. So from now onward, I think I will hand over to the panelists for discussion. And I think, yeah, the anchor person is Mualim Abbas Agbaje for a way to activate Nizāme-Jama'at. He will invite the people, and then he would run that. And then after that, question and answer is also going to be anchored by Dr. Sadiq Abdul Salam. Please, in that seriatum, go ahead until you get to vote of thanks, which the Sadar Sab is going to give, and then I will come to give the closing remark and the closing prayers. So I invite Mualim Abbas Agbaji Sab. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Amir Sab.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan, sir. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Respected brothers, alhamdulillah. I will crave the indulgence of the Amir Sab and Sadar Sab to stand on the existing protocol. Inshallah, we will commence the panelist session. Allow me to introduce our panelists for today. Our panelists for today are respected scholars and veterans of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Nigeria. I have the honor of inviting respected Pa Maulana Uncle Shubode Saib. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah.
Jazakumullah khairan, sir. We appreciate that you are able to join us today. Let me also invite our respected senior scholar in the person of Mukarram Muhammad Qasim Oyukola Saib. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for having me.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you for joining us as well, sir. I think the third person who would be joining us for this session, also one of our respected scholars, in person of Maulvi Abdul Azim Wajasad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think we have some interference, please. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, I think we have some silence already now. Alhamdulillah. So we'll begin in earnest. I think I'm aware that Mawvi Abdulazim Saab may be joining us later or would be replaced by another person on the panel, which is Mawvi Shamsuddin Ojo Saab. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We thank you for making out the time to join us. So we will begin with the panelist session. Alhamdulillah, jazakumullahu khairan to respected Mawvi Hafid Shuban Bissad for this very excellent presentation that he provided. And I believe that a whole lot of us have had the opportunity to, take a lot of jottings in terms of understanding what Nizāme-Jama'at is all about. And therefore, we would use some of what he had discussed as part of, the guidepost to these panelist session. So in the course of the program, his lecture, Hafiz Shuban Bissad, defined Nizāme-Jama'at as, in various words and, using words such as system, culture, principles, rules, framework for communication, education, a system for global propagation of Ahmadiyya. And he also cited the importance of, we abiding by this system of the Jamaat. So if I can start with our respected Pa Shubu Saab. So, sir, Hafiz Saab has told us a lot, and I believe we've made some jottings, but for the benefit of the members, is there a particular place or, book where the Nizāme-Jama'at, as Hafiz Saab has eloquently presented, where it is documented?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh, sir.
Alhamdulillah, alladhi hadana li hadha, wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. We thank Almighty Allah for having guided us to this path that we are treading. We will not be distracted by Satan. I am very happy, and I think the assignment has been made a little bit light. First, with the welcome address by the Sada Sahib, and the lecture delivered by the respected Mawvi Hafiz Abghani Shubabi Sahib, having defined what Nizam is, that overall system of organization and administration of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community to fulfill the purpose of the advent of Ashrati Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Before I answer the question directly that whether it could be sourced from a particular place, let me add that Nizāme-Jama'at is not a new thing. It's the same perfect Sharia given to the Holy Prophet Muhammad by Allah the Almighty, which according to the prophecies, a lot of prophecies by the Holy Prophet said that it will be corrupted in the latter days and will now be revived by Imam Mahdi alayhi salatu salam. It is this process of reviving, rejuvenating, reforming by the Prophet alayhi salam, which is now termed as the Nizāme-Jama'at, which started on the 23rd of March, 1889, with the first bayat received by Ashrati Muhammad alayhi salam. And that bayat has been explained. Once you enter into that bayat, it means you have sold yourself wholeheartedly, that you are no longer yourself. You are giving your life to Allah the Almighty through the instrumentality of Ashrati Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. Now to your question, whether it could be sourced from a particular place or a book, this Nizam is a revolving system, and it continues to evolve. And that is why after Ashrati Muhammad alayhi salam, we've had the Umara the Khulafa. this is the 5th Khilafah that we are on, and may Allah continue to help our Khalifa with sound health. From the first Khalifa, you will have discovered that this Nizam has been sort of not amended, but a sort of strengthened in different ways. So people have this erroneous belief that this document we always refer to, Rules and Regulation of Tariq Jadid. Some people erroneously refer to it as the Nizāme-Jama'at. No, it is just a guide. That document is a guide to the ways of implementing or queuing ourselves into the Nizam. That is what the document has been made for. And that is why, as we speak, to the best of my knowledge, I have seen maybe 5 editions of that book, where additions and certain modifications have been carried out in different parts of that document. So it is involved, and when it involves, a lot of things have happened. For instance, let me take one, because this one involves the Hudam. Prior to November 1989, you know that we used to have only a central Sadar in Robwa. In every country, it is the Umara, that is the Amirs, that were the Naib Sadar. The Amir of a country was the Naib Sadar Hudam, was the Naib Sadar Ansarullah, was the Naib Sadar Lajna Imaillah, representing all these organizations and sending the reports to the central Sadar, through whom the reports got to the Khalifa. In November 1989, after Khalifa Masih Rabi, Rahimahullah, now felt he was not being in true pictures of what this auxiliary organizations of the Jamaat, Hudam, Lajna, Ansarullah, what they were doing. It was not in true picture of what they were doing. He now said this system of central Sadarat should be cancelled, whereby every country should now have its own Sadar. It was since then we started having Sadar as heads of auxiliary bodies in all over the world. And you discover that the same assignment that the Umarat were having, collating the reports of the auxiliary bodies, sending to the central Sadar in Robwa, is the same assignments that we now have 3 private secretaries in the office of Asrat Albert Masi doing. We have private secretary, Ansar section, private secretary, Hudam section, private secretary, Lajna section. That tells us that there is no particular book that you can refer to as the only source of the Nizam. And that's why we have publications. Apart from the fact that every Khalifa delivers sermons every Friday and gives speeches, gives directives from time to time according to the changes in the system of human life. And we have a lot of publications. Hazrat Muhammad alayhi salam started Al-Hakam, I think in 1890 or thereabout. He started Review of Religions in 1902. We have Al-Fazal, we have At-Taqwa. All these documents are the ones in which you can always update yourself of the Nizam. But it's like we want to see, because the Sharia is there, it's perfect. You cannot change the Sharia. But there are certain ways by which you are expected to go by implementing or give yourself into the Sharia. That is exactly what it is not a particular place or a particular book that can be referred to as having been the source of the Nizam. I think that to save time, that answers that to an extent.
All right, sir. Jazakumullahu khairan ahsan al-jazah, and I think that's a very comprehensive response, sir. It's useful for people to understand that the Nizāme-Jama'at is not comprehensively captured in any book. It's a system that is all-encompassing, drawn out from the Sharia of Islam, and of course, it's a system that can change, based on the need of the time, and bringing about this sort of change. I think I will now go to our respected, Mukarram Muhammad Qasim Oyekala Sab. for the next question, and which is in terms of what our respected Pa Shubo just described, that there have been situations in the past based on, the perception of the effectiveness of the structure that was in place, for example, for the Majlis Sudan, and the Khalifa of the time, had to then say, let us change this. Now, it then appears that it is possible that the Nizāme-Jama'at may change from time to time, or aspect of it, not the entirety of it, may change from time to time based on socio-cultural dynamics of our contemporary society. So what's your reaction to this? And how do you think that members should think in the light of, some perceptions that people think that, for example, nowadays we go to class together, male and female. Why can't TAMSA members and male and females, why do they have to separate programs? This is an example. Or, for example, if you want to travel, you may need to get court wedding rather than the Jamaat certificate is not that important because it's not tenable. Different ways people talk about, things that are in our modern society. But how do you think that people should really think rightly about the Nizāme-Jama'at vis-a-vis, changes in our contemporary society?
Jazakallah khaira. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Jazakumullah khaira, everyone, and to the lead of this panel. It is not that Jamaat's Nizam is changing. Rather, it is being strengthened from one step to another, from one era to another. Thank God we have referred to Sharia of Islam, and we have learned that it is permanent and it cannot change. All what Jamaat Ahmadiyya is bringing to the surface for the Islamic world are already embedded and already fundamentals of Islam. Going through the Holy Quran, a hadith of the Holy Prophet Sallam, and Sirah of the Holy Prophet Sallam and Khulafa after him. And this is history, Islamic history, I mean. Take for example, though the question is not linking to that, but I wish to link to that it is just being brought to the surface. For example, when Holy Prophet Sallam was about departing for Battle of Badr, he appointed Hazrat Abdullah bin Maktoum as the Amir of Medina to act in his place. But not too long, Holy Prophet Sallam felt that something should be changed. So he appointed another person as the Amir, and that is Hazrat Abu Lubaba bin Munzir radiyallahu anhu, and he asked Hazrat Abdullah bin Maktoum to remain the Imam Salat, which ordinarily we can translate to be missionary in charge. So in place of Holy Prophet Sallam in Medina, we had the Amir, a missionary in charge in Medina. And when he reached Cuba, he appointed another person as the Amir for Cuba, not too far from Medina, a suburb of Medina, of course. So if we see all this in our Jamaat today, the same thing operates in our Jamaat, either here in Nigeria or elsewhere, like Ghana, where we have Amir, a missionary in charge. And recently in Benin Republic, we have Amir, a missionary in charge now. And in Nigeria, we have Amir, a missionary in charge. But in Ghana, we have a single person holding the two offices. So as you can see, I said that as example that Jamaat Ahmadiyya is only bringing what Islam has been doing since the inception to the surface for the entire Muslims to see. And coming back to the question of intermingling of the two genders,
yes,
male and female,
yes, sir. Except in politics. Even in politics, they know they do it.
So in the
I am a Yoruba.
But
apologies, sir. Can you pause for a bit, sir? Can we mute other people?
Where you want to
If you look at the
Somebody else is speaking somewhere.
Yes, look at that chapter. It's bombshell. Yes, bombshell.
Itimad, can we mute? Can we mute? I don't know who is talking. Can we mute? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it is part of Islam that there should be a protection of spirituality of every person. In Surah An-Nur, Allah says, male should lower their gaze, females should lower their gaze, and there should not be unnecessary intermingling among them. It means what we were practicing in Nigeria is actually not the core Islam. When female AMSA and male AMSA were mixing together in their programs. And we have been practicing this in our jalsas all this while. So why, and Hudam has been moving separately, Lajna moving separately in their program. AMSA male are part of Hudam, AMSA female are part of Lajna. So it is the real Islam now that Jamaat has insisted that each of the two organs should operate separately, and as we have them being operated, whereas Khalifat al-Masih Ta'ala bin Nazir al-Aziz reside. So it is not that the Nizam of the Jamaat is changing; it is rather being strengthened in Nigeria. So that is my perspective to it. It is not changing in Nigeria, but it's rather being strengthened, and we are being called to order, if I can use that language. So it is what Islam actually stands for that we are being told to practice in reality. And as Amisab rightly said in his opening words, he said, Uzur asked us to establish or to start to operate,
activate,
to activate, not to reactivate, to activate Nizāme-Jama'at.
Jazakumullahu khairan. That's an excellent ending, sir. The word activate that they are Uzur Ayadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz used with respect to the Nizāme-Jama'at in Nigeria. Movi Ojo-Sab, what's your reaction? Does it mean that we've not really been, adopting the Nizāme-Jama'at as we should in Nigeria? And if that is, if we can allude to that, why is that the case? And what's the way forward to really activate Nizāme-Jama'at in Nigeria?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullahu khairan for the question. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. It does not mean the Nigeria Jamaat has not been following the Nizāme-Jama'at, that is the organizational structure of the Jamaat. Of course, we've always had Amir, and at some point in our history, we had the offices of Amir and missionary in charge, which was being overseen by a single person. But the fact of the matter is, even in Medina, when the Islamic system was so sound, we always found some inadequacies. That is due to the fact that human beings generally are weak. For example, Huzur in one of his sermons have rightly called or drawn our attention to the fact that sometimes during Jalsa Salana, or when we have several gatherings, some points are mentioned by the speech, those who are delivering speeches, the scholars, which are a large party of those who are attending, the attendees, they already know of those points. In fact, as a matter of fact, some people have listened to sermon for like 30, 40 years, decades. They've listened to several speeches of several khulafa, several scholars. They have their points, this and that. But the fact of the matter remains that whenever a Muslim is to deliver speech or is to deliver a talk, any discussion, it always centers around the Quran. That is, whatever topic, whatever theme we might choose, we still have to discuss those themes and topics in the light of the Holy Quran, which means we can't fetch our points from other sources. So in the like manner, that is why Almighty Allah has said at a place in the Quran that فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ فَعَتِ الذِّكْرِ. We should, the Prophet ﷺ or Muslims should, they should admonish إِنَّ فَعَتِ الذِّكْرِ, or إِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ at another place, that admonition benefits Muslims, believers, and non-believers alike. So that is the real point. Nizāme-Jama'at at any point is not something we can completely do away with. It is just that sometimes there are some laxity, sometimes there are some oversight, sometimes we forget to discharge some of our duties in the Nizam. At any point in time, it is not possible for the Nizāme-Jama'at not to run. For example, the overall head of the Nizāme-Jama'at throughout the world is the Khalifa. At a certain point in the Nizam, that is the present system which we have, is that in case of the demise of a Khalifa, pending the time that another Khalifa is to be elected, if there is a delay, then the Sadr Anjuman Ahmadiyya will have to continue to oversee the affairs of the Jamaat till a Khalifa is elected. So what happens is a Khalifa is usually elected within the shortest period of time. However, before his election, or in case it takes some time, the work of the Jamaat cannot remain, stagnant. It has to continue going. So at that time, it will be considered that it is not in full operation, but it has to be in operation. So it will be temporarily handled by the Sadr Anjuman Ahmadiyya. And immediately a Khalifa is elected, every authority of Jamaat goes back to the Khalifa immediately. So in the like manner, in Nigeria, we've always had our activities, we've always had directives from Markaz, and we've always been doing our best to go according to, or to go by those rules or instructions or directives we've been receiving. But the Khalifa, as the head of the Nizam, or the overall Nizam, and which we believe and which is true, that he is always divinely inspired. So he must have noticed some laxity, some slackness, some weakness in our part, especially with regards to the Nizāme-Jama'at, which, although it's in place, but perhaps, or which is very, very correct, we have not been doing it as expected. So that is why he drew our attention to it. And by the special grace of Almighty Allah, as a respected Amin Sahib has mentioned, and keeping in view the theme of this August occasion, and keeping in view the theme of some of the gatherings or the occasion we've had since ever since we received that call from the Khalifa that we should activate the Nizāme-Jama'at in Nigeria. The Nigerian Jamaat has been trying, and inshallah, may Almighty Allah enable us all, starting from the respected Amir Sahib and Isamila and all other organizational structure of the Jamaat in Nigeria, to be able to attain or to reach that desired objective or standard set for us by our beloved Huzur. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Moderator Saab?
It's like he has been muted. He has been muted. So,
oh, I was speaking. I'm muted. Subhanallah.
You are muted.
And I've been speaking. Subhanallah. Jazakallah khairan. So I was saying that. So I would like to request that each of you on the panel to just in 1 minute, from your personal reflection, which area or component of the Nizāme-Jama'at do you think we have to improve on? Just 1 minute each before the last final round of questions.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. Within the 1 minute, I don't want us to play down on the instruction of the Khalifa. Activate, not reactivate. So if we have been doing certain things, the foundation, what about the foundation? I think the foundation we have to go back to. That is, the foundation has been emphasized here on many occasions, even within these few minutes that we started this program. Hear and obey. That is the foundation. Whatever we might have been doing, which we think is part of the Nizam, but doing the way we wanted it, the way we felt it should be, we will get it right. Until unless and until we trace our step back to the basic, whenever this, we have only source of authority. That is the Sharia, which the Khalifa now represents. Whatever Khalifa says or feels or wishes should be our command. Once we have that, then it means we will start getting this right. But anytime we have opinions, different from that of the Khalifa of the time, we will not get it right.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Jazakumullahu khairan. So I get it from your point that we need to look at the foundation, and that's with respect to our absolute obedience to the instruction of the Khalifa. Muallim Qasim Oyukala Sahab, in your own reflection, which aspect of the Nizam do you think we need to quickly take care of?
Yeah, Jazakallah khairan. Number one, we need to understand what the Nizam is. The Nizam of the Jamaat is always at the behest and at the command of the Khalifa of the time. Sometimes some things may be in operation in Nigeria and may not be in operation in Ghana or in Benin Republic. Or what is in operation in Ghana and not in operation in Nigeria. And all these countries outside Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, they are all under Tariq Jadid to the Khalifa of the time. So, but at the same time, Khalifa may say these things do in Ghana and another thing do in Nigeria. So if by chance we travel to Ghana or any of other country, something is being in operation there and it's not in, we should not compare. We should always look on to what the Khalifa is telling us in Nigeria, perhaps directly from his sermon or through the Amir of our country. This is very important for us to understand, and this is what we should abide by. If we travel to Ghana and we reside there, it is what this is in operation there that we abide by. In some countries, missionaries are Sadran of auxiliary body, but it's not in operation in Nigeria, so we should not compare. That's number one. Number two, we should never and ever talk negatively about the system of the Jamaat in our various homes. It destroys, it destroys, it destroys. Please, no member should talk negatively about the system of the Jamaat, even if we don't understand. Even if it ought.
Jazakumullahu khairan, ahsan al-jazahan. That's very instructive one. The point around the fact that members should desist from talking negatively about the Nizāme-Jama'at in their respective homes. And oftentimes you find people talk around, they always come to ask for money. Is it just money? They don't even ask after one's welfare. You have this money, that money, that money, this money, this money. But then again, we must remember that such words might begin to weaken the faith of members of our family, and therefore the true Nizāme-Jama'at would not reflect in our own homes. Jazakumullah khairan, Muallim Qasim Oyukala Sahab, for that. Mofisa, your personal reflection, which aspect of the Nizāme-Jama'at do you think we need to really take cognizance of?
Jazakumullah khairan. When talking about the Nizāme-Jama'at, the Khalifa always remain the automatic head. Then comes the culture and the customs of the Jamaat. We know of many of them. For example, it has been a tradition of the Jamaat since the time of the Prophet Nizāme-Jama'at that no Ahmadi father should give his daughter in marriage to a non-Ahmadi. We all know this. These are some of the cultures or traditions of the Jamaat. Now, it so happens that some of our children, unfortunately, when they get older, they get wayward, and we are unable to, we are unable to put them on the right track. Though they know it, but they just feel like they show or exhibit some contempt for the Nizāme-Jama'at. Okay, so if I don't marry an Ahmadi, will I go to hellfire? Questions like this. Many, they ask so many, I wouldn't say useless questions. Okay, maybe someone who has impregnated a lady and the lady delivers a child, then they will start narrating incidents. Okay, wasn't a prostitute admitted into Jannah by Almighty Allah without even offering any prayer, and that is even narrated in Hadith. So we tend to understand Islam more than the Sharia has explained to us by the Jamaat. So we should align all our thinking, our feeling, everything we do, even our worship. We should make sure we align them with the tradition of the Jamaat. Because as it is explained, there is nothing called Nizāme-Jama'at apart from the Sharia. And now His Holiness symbolizes that Sharia. He understands Sharia better than each and every one of us on this earth presently. So that is why Almighty Allah Himself has placed him as our Khalifa.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Excellent submission there from our panelists. Jazakumullahu khairan for these excellent submissions. And I believe our brothers are listening in, watching from different parts of the country, are really following this discussion, because for me, I know that this should really be transformational. It should really change the way we think around the Nizāme-Jama'at and improve our understanding of the Nizāme-Jama'at. And, Mawvi Sahab, the aspect you've just spoken on, right, it's a critical one. And therefore, around, marriages and similar issues like that. So the next question, which I would, throw out to our respected Pashobo Sahab, is that there are situations, I mean, you spoke about absolute obedience, which is the foundation, right? This is the same thing that respected Mawvi Shoba Sahab also mentioned around respect for leadership, right? Again, there is also the point that Mawvi Shoba Sahab made around the unity, maintaining and sustaining unity. And this is born out of also the brotherhood based on one of the conditions of the buyer. But there and then, there are situations where members of the community get married to each other, as is the Nizami of the Jamaat. But then there are issues around, matrimonial issues leading to, khul'a or divorce or talaq. But the point remains that even though we have a qadar system within the Jamaat, some people prefer not to even bring their case to the qadar system within the Jamaat, or in some other instances where there are disputes within members of the community, some people would rather want to, do things their own way because they have a different perception of the system that the Jamaat has put in place. So how do you think, sir, that an Ahmadi who has a contrary opinion on an issue or has a position on an issue and is not willing to follow the Nizāme-Jama'at, what's the best approach to, helping these people appreciate the system the Jamaat has put in place and to get them to really, be inclined towards using the system that Jamaat has put in place for the betterment of our lives as well as that of humanity? Ashobide Sahab, Assalamu alaikum.
Am I not being heard?
No, your voice was not coming out before, sir. Go ahead now, sir.
What about now? Oh, okay. I was saying that I wouldn't want to say that that question should not arise, because in human society, any question, anything can come up, it has to be addressed. But no membership of this Jamaat has a foundation. For instance, even as members of Moses Sudan, when we started this program, we rose up and recited pledge, pledging this, that, and that. Allah will ask us about all our pledges. We will be questioned about whatever pledge or promise we made as a member of this Jamaat. Now, if anybody has contrary opinion, that is human. But the last say should be for the leader. That's the last word. The last word should be for the leader. Whatever contrary opinion I may have, I must drop my own for as long. For instance, he started the example of Ashat Halimat Masih Awal. When he left home, he didn't have the mind of going to Qadian. But when he received message from Ashat Muhammad, he did not go back home to say, even he didn't have his transport fare with him. Immediately he left. We have had that. We have heard of somebody who was coming to the mosque during the time of and he only had sit down. And he sat down on the way. What brought about the sitting down order or directive? He didn't hear, he didn't know, he sat down. That is the sense we should have, that either we understand, like Oyikola Sab said, either we understand or we don't understand. The first thing as member of this Jamaat is to first of all obey. Then we can now start asking, in case they ask me outside, how should I answer this question? How should I defend this thing? But we must obey first and foremost. So if anybody has contrary opinion and he wants to implement his own opinion as against the opinion of the leadership of the Jamaat or the design of the Jamaat, what that means is rebellion. If you say, no, I have read this in this, I've read this, I've seen the example of this, and there's nothing bad in it, nothing wrong with it. If we allow that, there won't be Jamaat again. There won't be Jamaat. There are a lot of things that the non-Ahmadis do. They have authority, they have references for them. But once the Jamaat takes a stand, that stand should be the stand of every serious and committed Ahmadi. There shouldn't be any digression or diversion from that. Don't forget that the Jamaat should be, and it is, a single body under one single leader, from whom authority should be sourced. If we don't have that through our meal, then we should content ourselves with, like don't forget that even in the passage of Quran recited at the beginning of this program, there was one. This if we must hold on to the rope of Allah, what is the rope of Allah now? Because Hablullah is also a revolving one of the tashabihat in the Quran. Today, there is no rope of Allah that you will hold on to than the Khilafah. No other one. We don't have the Prophet with us. We have the Quran, we have the various opinions about the Quran. But whatever the Khalifa says, whatever the final word Khalifa says, whatever interpretation he gives to any verse of the Quran, every Ahmadi should key into that and should abide by it. And that's always the boss. If anybody has contrary opinion and he wants to go by that, he's almost on his way out of the Jamaat.
Jazakumullahu khairan, sir. I think that's very lucid, and it's very succinct as well. That it's important for us to put into our consciousness that absolute obedience is required, even when we don't seem to understand the instruction. We should just make sure that we set our mind to obeying the instruction, because we believe that this instruction is inspired by Almighty Allah. Jazakumullah khairan, ahsana jazahan, sir. So I will move over to our respected Muallim Muhammad Qasim Oyokala Sab. So taking from what our respected father just explained, the fact that one should be very careful of having or following his own whimsies and caprices when it comes to matters within relating to the Nizāme-Jama'at. For example, are there situations where it is permissible for members of the Amila to use discretion when it comes to certain matters that there's no explicit position, whether written or a directive from the Khalifa? Is there any room for Amila members to use their discretion in relation to any matter? For example, we've had situations where there is this debate around whether it is permissible within the Jamaat system for people to organize special prayer and they choose to read the whole Quran in one day, or some other people use different styles of reading the Quran or different kinds of prayers and others. This is just an example, but is it really permissible for people to use their discretion in the discharge of their duties or responsibilities?
Jazakallah khairan, sir. I'm extremely happy for the example that that the question premised upon, and it's one of the issues that have been raised and resolved by the Jamaat. Meaning we can say, okay, if we can say is a fundamental one, and Jamaat already takes position on them. So all such matters that are fundamentals, that Jamaat already has position upon, there is no discretion to be used by any member, irrespective of office or irrespective of status. For example, the one you just mentioned, there was already a circular on it a few years back, that it is not our doing. Some non-Ahmadis may be doing it. So irrespective of knowledge that any Ahmadi may have, either you are a missionary or not, irrespective of status, you don't do it. You don't do it because Jamaat already has a position on it. So you don't organize people to come and recite the Holy Quran at once, except if it changes or if it is modified tomorrow. But we already have, there is no counter instruction as we speak. So it is part of the Nizam that members of the Jamaat should not do it, even including Ruqya.
Right.
Yeah, including Ruqya. We already have a circular on it from the headquarters. So all those fundamental issues that Jamaat, or like respected Uncle Shube Idesab said, all those fundamental issues that Jamaat already has a position, no member is allowed to use his or her own discretion. But let's say we are instructed to go for tabligh. Okay, carry out tabligh, that's a day-to-day instruction from the Jamaat, from Uzur. Carry out tabligh, carry out tarbiyat. Where do we go for that tabligh? In the town, in the villages, in the river, in the market? Where? Then the secretary tabligh and his team can sit down and discuss based on their own locality, based on their environment. They may say, okay, the town is not suitable for now for us, for our tabligh. Let's go to the rural areas. Like in the north, you can't go to rural areas now in the north. Even tabligh, open tabligh now is a bit difficult. The discretion that the tabligh team use in the north is totally different from the discretion that tabligh team in the south use. So how do we carry out the instructions in the best possible manner that will yield positive result is where use of discretion is allowed, but not to change fundamentals.
Right. Jazakumullahu khairan, ahsan al-jazah, and very, very appropriate response there. So jazakallah khairan. It therefore shows that, even the intention with which we apply our discretion matters a lot when it comes to how we implement instructions from the Khalifa or the leadership of the Jamaat. Jazakumullahu khairan, ahsan al-jazah. So let me move on quickly to our respected Maulvi Ojo Saab. So, I mean, we've been having this discussion from the presentation of, from the opening remarks of, Sadar Saab, the welcome speech of the Amir Saab, the presentation of respected Maulvi Shuban Bisab, and of course, the very erudite submissions of respected panelists, including yourself. We've seen that the Nizāme-Jama'at has several components. And, for someone who is new to the Jamaat, how do you think a new Ahmadi member can be well acquainted with the Nizāme-Jama'at? What strategies, what tips would you share with us that can be beneficial to such categories of members? Jazakallah khairan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullahu khairan for the pertinent question. First of all, we had new converts at the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So just like we've been reiterating, the Nizāme-Jama'at is, in a nutshell, the Sharia of Islam. So the ways and the conducts which were adopted at the time of the Prophet Muhammad can also be used now. In fact, they should be used, and that would be much better. That is, we would very much remember that most often than not, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis, Ayadahullahu Ta'ala bin Aziz, has been regularly and repeatedly stating the fact that members should watch their tarbiyah. That is, those who have been members of the Ahmadiyya community for a long time, perhaps by birth, and those who have accepted Jamaat since a long time, that we should be very, very watchful of our tarbiyah. It is very, very important. So what do we mean by tarbiyah? It is a term which is commonly used. It means the moral training. We ourselves, that is those who are already Ahmadis for a long time, we should create an atmosphere which will enable new members to see the beauty of Islam, and particularly the beauty of Islam Ahmadiyya. It is very, very important. In fact, this will go a very long way in making it easy for the new converts to easily adopt the system of the Jamaat. Take, for instance, we preach, let's say, we have different or several means by which we do our public outreach, our tabligh. Perhaps, by way of example, we preach on television or radio. So someone likes the lecture so much so that he contacts the number given after the program to accept via. He has not seen any Ahmadi before. It can be supposed that he has not even seen any Ahmadi, has not met any Ahmadi. He only listened to a mouth-watering sermon, which convinced him of the truthfulness of the Jamaat. Now he becomes a member of our Jamaat. He is introduced to the nearest Jamaat to him in his area. Now he goes there and meets the members doing things which are contrary to, for example, he enters the mosque and meets Jamaat members making noise, laughing, giggling in the mosque. It is not at all going to send any good message to the person. His first perception will be like, but these people, they were preaching, with all kinds of verbosity, what they are preaching is so attractive. But at the end of the day, they ended up just like any other Muslim community. So after that, there is nothing you can tell such a person which will help the person, which will yield any particular response or reaction from the person. Another way, apart from tarbiyah, another way by which we can help newly converted members to align themselves with the Jamaat is following the very profound instructions and directives of His Holiness. For example, he tells us that whenever a new member joins the community, we shouldn't bombard the person with chanda. Oh, we pay chanda we pay chanda wasiya, we pay chanda majlis, we have chanda this, chanda that, chanda jalsa. He does not even know what is called jalsa salana. He doesn't know, maybe you organize any shura or some other programs. Then you are coming to bombard the person, especially if the person is a rich one, a rich individual. You feel like, oh, the burden of our Jamaat, which has always, which has always been too much for us to bear. Alhamdulillah, God has sent one very nice person. So things should not be done in this manner. We have a way and manner of doing things. Okay, some people, they are scholarly already. Perhaps they studied some some of our creed, and they were convinced. For this kind of people, you don't even need to tell him to offer sadaqah. Even then, it is not incumbent on the person. It is not compulsory. If he pays, like he immediately, align himself, he incorporates himself into the system, well and good. If he doesn't do that, he has a grace of about 1, 2, 3 years to learn the system. So let me say, existing old members should do our best. We should portray Islam in such a way that it would be intriguing for those who are outside to join us in the community. But if by the grace of Allah, we now have new converts, then it even adds to our already existing responsibilities. That is, even if we have already been doing things in the right manner, especially tarbiyah twice, it means we have to up our tarbiyah so that that person will feel that, yes, he has really come to the right place. Because the Prophet ﷺ also is reported to have said, Al-Iman, yankusu wa yazid. This faith we talk about, it is something which increases sometimes, and sometimes it decreases. Even among those who have already been well firm and established on their faith, a little trial and they fall prey. We have many examples in the Quran. We have many examples over the years. So not to talk of someone who is just coming from outside. And sometimes when a new member joins the community, he faces a very serious persecution from his immediate family. Sometimes if a man accepts the Jamaat, their wife, for example, might not even accept. In fact, their wife might not even be ready to hear anything about Ahmadiyya. Now, in that case, whereby such a man is facing a kind of serious hell at home, he comes to the mosque and he is not seeing anything palatable, anything which is in line with the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, as expected of Jamaat Ahmadiyya, in line with what we talked about. So let me say, in a nutshell, the truth of the matter, of the crux of the matter is, we should go back to that verse of Surah As-Saff, where in Allah has called the believers, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, lima taquluna ma la taf'alun, kabura maqtan inda Allahi an taqulu ma la taf'alun. The believers, why should we say something we cannot practice? This morning, the respected Salah Sahib began this session with the permission of Amir Sahib with the pledge, which we all read with him. We've always been reading it. In fact, today, in most of our Dalat, they'll be having their meetings. They will also read this pledge. Always we are promising and promising and promising. To what extent are we carrying out or fulfilling these promises? Or are we trying to fulfill the promises? So if we are found wanting in fulfilling our responsibilities, then it will make it difficult for those who are joining us to stay in the Jamaat. And we should be careful of not falling victim of sending people out of the divine community of Almighty Allah through our actions and inactions. So it is a very, very important part of the system also. We should understand we all are part of Nizāme-Jama'at. Okay, we might not be fortunate enough, let me say, we might not be privileged, we might not be privileged to hold some, let me say, substantial position. But we are, as long as we count ourselves to be members of Jamaat Ahmadiyya, then automatically we are part of this Nizam. So we can also be watched. We are also like a mirror, portraying the customs and the traditions and the Sharia of Islam to other people. So we shouldn't see it as it is only the Amir Sahib or the Sajjan or the office holders who are actually models for people to watch. As far as Ahmadiyya is concerned, every member of Jamaat Ahmadiyya is a missionary, though you might not be certified. Every member of Jamaat Ahmadiyya is a representative of Khalifa wherever he is. He's a representative of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you cannot imagine the Prophet sallam or the Khulafa, be it Rashida or Khulafa of Masima Islam, doing things contrary to the Sharia. So it means we always have to bear this in mind, that a very huge responsibility has been placed on our shoulders for being members of Jamaat Ahmadiyya. And we are also a part of that Nizam we have been emphasizing. We also are part of Nizam. So we should do our best to accommodate people into the Jamaat, specifically through our high moral standards and through following the dictates of the Quran and Prophet Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Jazakumullahu khair. Moderator Sahib, Assalamu alaikum. Brother Abbas Sahib, moderator.
It's muted again.
No, I guess network.
No, it's muted.
Yeah, network takes him out. He just joined.
All right, sir. Jazakallah khairan. I just came back in. Apologies for the break in transmission. Jazakallah khairan, Mavi Saab. Very, very elucidating, submission there. May Allah help us to be the true beacon. Itimad, can we mute people, please? Jazakallah khairan. May Allah make us the beacon of piety, for the benefit of the new members who are joining the Jamaat. So very quickly, as we are wrapping up the session, the panelist session, partially this, as part of the Nizāme-Jama'at, we've established that the Nizāme-Jama'at is, essentially the Sharia of Islam. And therefore, it's essential that, we abide by the Nizāme-Jama'at. But the important thing here to also note is that more and more we have influences, in terms of, global happenings that is beginning to make people, take to things that are not necessarily part of what has been the practice of the Jamaat. For example, I think in recent time, there's been these, many people tending to celebrate birthday. And some people feel that, is it really part of the Nizāme-Jama'at or the practice of the Jamaat for one to openly celebrate birthday? Some people feel it is not wrong. Some people say, of course, you are just remembering and thanking Allah. What's your reaction to this, sir? What do you think is the best way for anyone who really wants to celebrate, if that is really part of, the culture of Islam, should really take in really remembering or thanking Allah for them being alive at the time of their new birthday year?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh, sir.
I think it boils down to the same thing. If I may add to the first question, the last people that were just answered, we have all the structures for training new members. The structure that we have internationally goes down the ladder through the national circuit, and in our own case, up to the local level. We have all these secretaries, Tarbiya, Talim, everything we have. This is the structure that should work. And don't forget that the activities of the Jamaat reside solely in the local Jamaat. The circuit doesn't have a Jamaat. National doesn't have Jamaat. Everybody at the circuit or at the national level has their local Jamaat that they belong to. So if nothing is happening there, if all those officers are not active, so it's part of activating the Nizam. We have to activate all those officers that we voted for at the local level to make sure that they carry out all the demands of their offices. All the principles of their offices, they carry it out, so that whenever anybody comes, that's why we have secretary for Taliban Mbain. So he should take care of that. Once somebody goes on Tabligh and converts people, the secretary Taliban Mbain, he should also take it over from there. That how the people will be trained, and they will have them also in the auxiliary bodies. That's just that. About birthday, I have had times without number from Ashat Aliat Master Robbie, rahimahullah, answering this question. He said, if we must celebrate birthday, it will mean that no day will be left out in the 365 days in a year, because every day somebody was born. Somebody was born every day people were born. So if I celebrate my own today, or 10 of us celebrate today, tomorrow another 10, next tomorrow another 10, it means for the whole year, we will not do anything except celebration of birthday. But if somebody wants to be thankful, don't forget that as you count your days, that is, you should also be remembering that your end is coming nearer. As you add more years to your life, you should also have it in mind that your end is coming nearer to you, just as you are going far from your bed. You are going far from your bed, you are going nearer to your end. So we should have that in mind. Now, if anybody now wants to be grateful to God, at least grant me life to be to get to this age, or to add one more year to my age, why not stand up in the night, say tahajjud, give sadaqah, and give thanks to Almighty? That ends it. But to now say, I want to call people, I want to feed people, I want to feed people, to show that gratefulness to God, I think that would not be in line with this Nizāme-Jama'at. Once Jamaat, I still repeat, once the one takes a stand on anything, nobody, Allah says, it does not behold any Muslim man or woman. When Allah and His Prophet have decided the matter, to now say, I have an idea. What idea will you have? Once the Jamaat decides a matter, and you say you are a member of that Jamaat, forget about what operates elsewhere. Forget about, like your scholars have said, forget about what Khalifa even allows elsewhere. This is the system of the Jamaat. Q into it. QED. Assalamu alaikum.
A follow-up question, sir, very quickly, sir. If you can do that in 1 or 2 minutes. Why some people will say they may not necessarily celebrate every year, but they want to celebrate those milestones, like I clock 40, the golden jubilee, the silver jubilee. Does this mean they are also being extravagant, or should we still maintain the same position that it should just be that quiet way of reflection and prayer?
I don't want to use the word extravagance.
All right.
If anybody has money and he wants to declare surplus,
call people to eat.
No problem about that. There's no problem about that one. But you must stay within the limit allowed by the Sharia, which the Nizāme-Jama'at represents. What is important about 40 years? The Prophet attained to 40 years. He attained to 50 years. He didn't celebrate golden year. He didn't celebrate the silver birthday. He didn't celebrate the silver birthday. We have all our khilafah. Just recently, maybe last month, August, thereabout, when Uzur clocked a certain age. Some people pray for Uzur. There was even a particular place where they cut cake to celebrate Uzur. Uzur did not say anything because they didn't go to Uzur. Uzur did not invite anybody for birthday. And he didn't even announce to anybody that today I'm clocking this and please pray for me. He never announced to anybody. But for those of us who take note of it, our Uzur has added another year to his life today. And we want to thank God for his life. And we say pray for him, and everybody prayed. I think that is okay. But to now say you want to celebrate and you want people to be there to know that you are doing it, it's not only a sacrifice, but it's what do you lagwi? It's lagwi. What do we stand to gain by it? It's lagwi. So as simple as that.
Jazakallah khairan ahsana jazaha. Relatedly, because some people would say that when you're a member of the Jamaat al-Ahmadiyya, you really have a lot of financial obligations, such that even if you want to celebrate your birthday, you may have to even dedicate some fund to Tariq-e-Jadid, Waqf-e-Jadid, mosque donation, and others. And as Maulvi Shoban Bissab, stated earlier on, that the financial system of the Jamaat is also one of the Nizāme-Jama'at, and therefore something that members need to really be aware of. So my question to respected Malim Qasim Boyikala sir is this, that some members, don't necessarily pay. I mean, it's been alleged by some people and it's been discussed or, talked about that some members don't pay the right fare, the right rate, in terms of maybe it's Chanda Am or Chanda Wasiya, or if Wakfi Jadid or Tariq Jadid with respect to their income. In some instances, it's been said that some members feel that if I pay so much, they will know I have money and they will bombard me with requests. Secondly, some members, because of the nature of how they earn their income, they can't even track their income, and therefore it makes it difficult for them to really know the exact amount to pay. And they would use their discretion to say, let me just pay this amount, at least it is okay. Thirdly, there's been also the case of somebody who thinks that, let me just pay small into the purse of the Jamaat. After all, I'm helping other people. Many people are sending requests to me. It's still part of Sadaqah. What's your reaction to this, sir?
Let me take it from the rear. In Islam, you don't take decision on what is already known on basics that the rate is already known. Equating or liking what we are doing as financial sacrifice in the Jamaat with zakat, which is a pillar of Islam. 2.5% is 2.5% of your annual savings. So, and you don't give zakat to anybody on your own. You pay to the community. You pay through the leader of the community in Islam. When some people said they didn't want to pay, then Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, asked to stand firm against them. Recently, we listened to that from Hazrat Khalifa al-Masih bin Nazir al-Aziz, while telling us about Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So with regards to Chanda, you don't say no, 1/16 remains 1/16. 1/10 of Wasiya down to 1/3 or 1/3 down to 1/10 remains the rate of the Wasiyat. And you don't joke with it. So the rate remains the rate. 1/10 for Jalsa remains that. So you don't, no sincere member who wants to really key in to reap the blessings of Nizam of the Jamaat should not toy with those things. Should not and should not. So it now comes to matter of faith and spiritual stance of every individual. If you see yourself as a bona fide and as a sincere member and follower of Hazrat Promised Messiah, alayhi salam, you don't use your discretion when it comes to this. Mimma razaqnahum yunfiqun is the principle that Jamaat follows. If you receive 10,000 naira, then pay 1,000 naira as Chanda Wasiyat. Annually, pay same amount for Jaza Salana. Not more than that, except you want to do more.
Hold on, sir. Hold on, sir. Itimad, please, can we mute people, please, because of the interference? Please go ahead, sir.
Or when some other financial sacrifice is being called for, like currently we are pursuing rigorously towards Minaret International University. It's not going to maybe, I mean, for now, is a chanda to be paid. It is a chanda to be paid, and it already has a rate, and the rate is the rate of our annual chanda that we pay for 1 year. Pay that for minarets. So that's the rate. So no sincere member should compromise that. So it borders on sincerity. And then coming to one of the aspects of the question is also that, I don't know how I do it. I don't know the profits. No. Why should somebody say he does not know the profit? Even the mama that is selling dundu or boli on the roadside, she knows how much she buys the yam, how much she buys the oil, how much she purchases the gas that she uses. At the end of the day, she will know how much she earns as the profit. It is only when we want to be human that we want to discuss, no, I don't know how much. Maybe they want to tell us that they don't have the record. It is the record that they don't have, not that they don't know how much is the profit. So that's why some of us who have been opportune to work in the area of Chanda drive of the Jamaat, we always advise, write down or ask your children to write down what your profit is daily or weekly. From there, you pay your Chanda. Or after the daily sales, after having known what your profit is, remove Chanda of that profit, keep it somewhere, or you give it to local financial secretary on the second morning or the second day. So by that, you will know that what you will be paying to Allah will be much more than what you think should be paid. And it's quite easy when we pursue everything with sincerity and sense of obedience. And we should know, on a final note here, that payment of Chanda is paramount in our Jamaat. And when Khalifa of the time says, do not collect person.
Subhanallah. Itimad, can we mute people, please?
I don't know.
When Khalifa of the time says, don't collect Chanda from so person again, is an unfortunate incident. It is quite an unfortunate incident for that individual. So it is something that the person should continue to write to the Khalifa through the Amir from time to time. If he or she can write to the Khalifa daily and 30 days in a month, seeking forgiveness of the Khalifa, seeking the pleasure of the Khalifa again, that please, Uzur, please forgive me, please forgive me, please forgive me, please forgive me. It's worth it. Because what Khalifa is telling you that you are no more part of the system of the Jamaat. You are no more to reap from the blessings of the system of the Jamaat. So it means you are not part of us. Even if the word excommunication is not written in that letter to the person is already excommunicated from the system of the Jamaat. So it is something that we should take very seriously. And every brother on the call here in this meeting should please take this issue of Chanda very seriously. May Allah the Almighty continue to guide us. Jazakallah.
Ameen. Jazakumullahu khairan ahsan al-jazahan. The payment of Chanda is a critical one. It's one of the ways we demonstrate our commitment, to the pledge that we make, that we are ready to sacrifice everything for the sake of Allah, including our wealth, our honor, everything that we have for the sake of Allah. May Allah make it easy for us. So next I would go to our respected Maulvi Ojo Sab. Maulvi Sab, as we discuss these Nizāme-Jama'at, and earlier on we alluded to the fact that there may be some introduction of certain practices that were not in place before, but just to strengthen how we propagate the Islam al-Ahmadiyya to the corners of the world, and also to strengthen the institution of Khilafah, there may be need to introduce some innovative practices that would benefit people spiritually. So we've seen some people, entertain some concern around how we, observe our Jumat, based on the fact that we now, prior to the Jummah, we listen to the lecture of the Khalifa, watching TVs in the mosque, and subsequently is when we observe our Salah. So obviously, we understand what we do, but outsiders may not necessarily understand what we do, and some members have been questioned. What do you think is the best way to provide responses to people who, sort of express concern around how we do this? Because evidently, one way they would quickly talk about it is that this was not practiced in the times of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, and therefore it is bid'ah. So how should members respond to these, and how best do you think members should communicate this kind of response responses to people, both within the Jamaat as well as outside the Jamaat. Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakumullah khairan. To begin with, I don't think it is appropriate for any member to show a kind of indifference towards this decision. As we've been explaining since morning, Nizāme-Jama'at or Sharia is basically listening and obeying immediately. Huzur Ayyarahullahu Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz in several sermons have drawn our attention to the fact that it is very, very necessary and important for members around the world, Ahmadi members around the world, to see his sermons so that we can also directly, get his directives, the guidelines he's giving us. Everyone can get it directly and we can immediately start acting upon them. So if a non-Ahmadi, someone who is not a member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, if he is asking this type of question, then it is well entertained. But from among members of the Jamaat, it is explained that even if we are told to do something which we don't understand, we have to do it without having any other thought in our minds. Why should we do it, this and that? Okay, this might be quoted here. What other thing do we want to listen to? Apart from Quran, the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, and his rightly guided representative, who is the Khalifa of the time. What other speech do we want to hear? We see instances of people delivering sermons and they will be shouting on top of their voices. Well, anyone or everyone has their own way of delivering speeches. But even at some point, you see people, they begin to cry, to weep whenever a scholarly person is delivering some very, very encompassing sermon. But what do we see at the end of the day? People will just, they will enjoy the sermon. Oh, he quoted this, he quoted Ibn Arabi, he quoted this and that. But do we see these things which are quoted? Do we see people practicing them? People have been listening to sermons. But it is not a surprise that with the gentle way by which Uzur delivers his sermon, it has that very, very strong capacity, that very strong power of changing and of reforming Ahmadi members around the world. Now, watching or seeing the sermon in the mosque from a perspective can be seen as a direct way of tabligh. We have several incidents of people having accepted the Jamaat through this same sermon, which I don't know or I see no reason why Ahmadi members should feel, I don't know, strange or something. Maybe, or should I even say offended, even to the extent of calling it bid'ah. One thing which should be clarified is not in any of our mosques do we use Huzur's sermon as the final sermon and we just pray. That is, once he completes the khutbah saniya, the second khutbah, we just proceed and we pray. We don't do that. In the list, a summary of the sermon which has been delivered is usually given, maybe some 3, 5, 10 minutes by the local imam, whoever is to lead, after which the Friday service, the Juma service is observed. So that clarifies that point. Now, we ourselves, we have to be convinced of that system, of that directive given by His Holiness. When we are convinced, telling other people would not be difficult at all. But if we ourselves are not even convinced, because there are still several mosques where these sermons are not watched, at least live. In fact, it is not seen at all in some of our mosques. So if we ourselves are still indifferent to that directive, then there is nothing we are going to tell others which is going to convince them. So we should understand and incorporate that system in ourselves by seeing the sermons regularly, and not only seeing the sermons, we should take notes, we should take vital points from the sermon, and there is no sermon Huzur delivers wherein we cannot derive more than 10 very, very cogent points. But what we see is, in most cases, even members will come late for the Juma service. They target the time where Nuzul will finish the sermon, maybe some 5 or 10 minutes before. Then you see them trooping in, which means even we, the members, we are not taking that directive seriously. And we consider ourselves to be real Ahmadis. So it all bows down to our sincerity level, our loyalty level to the Jamaat. We should be very, very convinced of that system, take every directive as if it is directly sent to us by God Almighty through his Khalifa. Now, after having understood, then Almighty Allah says, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah." We are to explain things, matters of religion, with profound
Sorry,
wisdom.
Mavi Saab, please, if you can round up in 1 minute, please.
Okay. So we should, it shouldn't be a difficult task to explain our stance to non-Ahmadis. A point might be very helpful here. We can just cite the example of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assuming we are fortunate enough to have the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam amongst us now, are we not going to do our best, even if we have to borrow money to go to Makkah or Medina, to listen to his sermon even once in our entire lifetime? Now, due to the availability of the modern technology, we are able to see and watch live the representative of the Prophet Muhammad now. So it is just for us to understand that blessing of Almighty Allah, that we are watching him in representation of the Prophet Muhammad, and we are not doing any bid'ah because there was no TV at that time to relay the message of Prophet Muhammad while he was delivering his sermon.
Jazakallahu khairan, ahsan al-jazah, Mavi Saab. That was really, really, really insightful. I believe that our brothers will be well enlightened more, when it comes to discussing issues such as this with members, fellow members who are not present here, as well as people outside of the Jamaat. So because of time, this is where we will draw the curtain on the panelist session. Let me thank respectfully our father, Pa Shoboyede, and our dear father as well, respected Mualim Qasim Oyekala Saab and Mavi Ojo Saab, for your erudition that you've shared with us today. It's been super interesting and insightful panelist session. I believe that members of the Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya and other members who have joined us on this session have really had a feel of their mind with some of the excellent wisdom that you've shared with us today. Jazakumullahu khairan. So just to summarize, it's important for us to bear in mind that Nizāme-Jama'at is not different from the Sharia of Islam, and therefore we are not doing anything new. We are just only strengthening the Sharia of Islam as practiced by Rasulullah sallallahu, as well as following the footpath that has been laid by the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. There are many aspects of Nizāme-Jama'at. We need to follow the instruction of the Khalifa and ensure that we abide by all instruction of the Khalifa, whether we understand or not. Allah will guide us to the best. We should follow the leadership because they would also be acting in good faith and trust with respect to the decision of the Khalifa of the time. We should read books of the Jamaat for us to better understand. We should have the best behavior and disposition for us to also show good examples to new members that have joined the community. This is where we will end it, and we'll move on to the question and answer session. Jazakallah khairan to their panelists once again, and their brothers. Thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I will hand over to Dr. Abdul Salam Saab.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah khairan, Missionary Agbaje Sahib. Let me quickly appreciate our lecturers and the panelists who have gone educating us over time, and in fact it was very inspiring. I had a number of questions during the lectures, but I think many of them were answered in the course of the panelist session. Inshallah, we have a number of questions that already that have been sent in, and because we do not have a lot of time, I want to first take some of the questions that have been sent in before we see if we will still have time to permit
some of our members that want to signify on the platform to ask their questions. The first question I want to take, it says, is reception, let me direct this to Hafiz Abdul Ghani Shobambi Sahib. I'll direct this to Hafiz Shobambi Sahib.
Yeah.
Is reception allowed after nikah? If yes, what are the guidelines in the Jamaat?
Reception normally is meant for the bride on the first day. It is because most of these things are being merged together nowadays. Else, the second day is for the groom to welcome the bride, and that is walima, and that has been the sunnah of the Prophet, where he said, "Aulim walau bishat," that you should do walima for your new coming bride, even if you have to slaughter a sheep or goat. Reception is allowed for the family of the lady to feast people in thankfulness to Almighty Allah. But the way reception is done here, by beating drum, by exhibiting the wife on a podium and the husband, this is not the tradition of the Nizāme-Jama'at. It's just for feasting. So feasting is allowed in Islam. So nothing more than that. No intermingling, no dancing, and so on. This has been the tradition of the Jamaat. The second day, the walima comes up. Okay, I think that answers it.
Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Maybe I need to write that to that. Who does the reception or who does the walima? I don't know.
I had clearly stated that the family of the female, of the wife, one that does the reception, and the male, that is the groom, feasts the lady and other people on the second day.
Jazakumullah khairan, sir. Jazakumullah khairan. Maulvi Shamsuddin Ojo Sahib, please will you help us answer this question? What makes Ahmadi Muslims different from other Muslims, aside from following or obeying the Sunnah, the Quran and the Sunnah?
Jazakumullahu khairan. Fundamentally, nothing differentiates Ahmadi Muslims from non-Ahmadi Muslims, fundamentally. But even from the nomenclature, from the name, Ahmadi Muslim, what makes we or us Ahmadi Muslims? It is because we have accepted and taken the bay'ah of that promised reformer, promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salatu wasalam, which was prophesied by the noblest of Prophet Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he didn't just tell us a prophet will come or a reformer will come. He told us this with a lot of signs, numerous signs, heavenly signs and even earthly signs. So after having claimed, the first fundamental duty of a prophet after having received message from Almighty Allah is to tell people, to call people that, okay, Almighty Allah has chosen me. Now, that is his own call. If he does that, then our own as Muslims or as human beings is to examine that person. We should check, okay, you have called yourself a prophet. Now, what are the signs told by Prophet Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Now, those signs, we put them in front of us. We keep them in mind. Then we check the life or the lifestyle of the claimant. Okay, fortunately for us, recently, just yesterday, or this past week, His Holiness Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the Fifth, Ayyadahullahu Ta'ala bin Aziz, he went to the United States of America to inaugurate Masjid Fath Azim, that is the mosque named the Big or the Great Victory. What makes that mosque a great victory was that Alexander Dowie, who was a false claimant. Why do I call him or use that term, a false claimant? Because he said he claimed to be the second coming of Elijah, and he said he was that promised Messiah who has been prophesied to come in the later days. Now he claimed, quite all right. Even the promised Messiah himself claimed to be the Messiah. But the difference is, after having claimed, do we see the signs are foretold, be it in the Bible or by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu? Do we see them fulfilling in the life of Alexander Dowie? No, never. He perished, his ministry, it crumbled, it was annihilated by God Almighty. And now, in that same city of his, which he named Zion, he had one very big church then, a very wealthy man. And on the other hand, we have Masih Maud alayhi salam, who was having a very meager resources in one extreme village, Qadian, in those days. But what do we see? Almighty Allah showed his power. He showed his support for Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam, which means it comes back to my point that, okay, anyone can claim. In fact, I can claim to be the president of Nigeria. It is a claim. But you have to check in me. Do I have any authority to be the president? Can I even sanction anything to be done throughout the federation? I can. So that is a worldly claim. But for a spiritual one, if you claim to be a prophet, then the signs of Almighty Allah have to accompany you, which we have seen in Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam. He claimed rightly that he's the promised Messiah, and his ministry has been growing from strength to strength. Even recently, Uzur said, the Jamaat has now been established in 218 countries of the world. So if he was a liar, na'udhu billah wa la'iyadhu billah, we should have seen that he is a liar. His ministry should have crumbled, because we have several messiahs, false claimants to messiahhood, who have perished. Alexander Dowie being one of them, and quite a number of them. But the promised Messiah alayhi salam has claimed, and his claim has remained tall even up till now. And the Jamaat is progressing from strength to strength every time. So, which means we as Ahmadi members, we believe in that Messiah who claims to be the Messiah, the prophet, the reformer, as foretold by Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is only the difference. And anyone who we refer to as non-Ahmadi, or someone who is not an Ahmadi member, means such a person has not accepted Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad to be the Messiah.
Jazakallah khairan, sir. Perhaps this might be the last question we'll take. I want to request that Hafiz sir be brief with it, so that if we will still be able to take one, I think there is still one more. Is it right for an Islamic country to have morality police, as we see in some countries like Iran?
I didn't get the message. I didn't get the question.
Yes. Is it right for an Islamic country to have morality police, Tarbiyah police, as we see in some countries like Iran?
Is it? Other listen. The other don't hear you when you talk.
The question is it right for an Islamic country to have morality police, as we see in some countries like Iran?
Morality?
Police.
Well, see, under Islam, everything that is an adherent, exhortation, persuasion, education, There is no compulsion. Police will breed another form of people that will start acting without proper spirit of Islam. I have time without number tell anyone that listen that Islam was brought by the noblest of man, the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and God's knowledge used the same prophet as an example for us. He never policed anybody. He demonstrated high moral standard and exhort his followers to do same. So that is what was upheld from the time of the Holy Prophet. So there's no need for any morality police anywhere. Conviction of faith is what made Abba to follow the prophet to letter. That's it.
Jazakumullah khairan, sir. I think we can still take this question. I also want to request that Mufti Sahab is brief with the response to the question. Every Ahmadi is quick to say Samina wa Atona. With this directive from His Holiness, does it mean we only utter it?
Mute.
Can the admin help us mute? Jazakumullah khairan. Yes, Mufti Sahab, every Ahmadi speak to say Samina wa Atona. With this directive from His Holiness, does it mean we only utter it but do not internalize?
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
As far as saying Sami'na wa Ata'na is concerned, yes, we do say Sami'na wa Ata'na. We have heard, and we should also do our best to obey. But it will not be. It will be. Let me say, unjust to say that to accept the view of this person. That does it mean we are just hearing and we don't obey? No. His Holiness knows the particular aspects he wants us to improve on. So, as I said earlier, we all are part of Nizāme-Jama'at. In fact, when talking of Jamaat Ahmadiyya Nigeria, for example, it doesn't only involve Amir Sahib or the respected Nizami Sahib. It involves each and every one of us. The Amir Sahib and the Minister in charge and the leadership, they are only our representatives. So it means the directive of Huzur, Yadahullah Ta'ala Aziz, that we should activate the Nizam means the leadership should explain and re-explain to us what the Nizāme-Jama'at is. That is, we should all remind ourselves. Then we also collectively should do our best to act in accordance with whatever we are told. Not only saying Samina, we are fed Watana by our mouth, but our actions, all of us collectively, our actions should also support what we claim.
Sorry, I'm very sorry. I forgot I had muted myself. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
We want to take one more question. If there is any question, if there's anybody that has a question that hasn't been sent in, let's take just one question and we'll be calling it a day on the question and answer session here.
Now we have question in the chat box.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, assalamu alaikum. My question is it, no, let me take, is it allowed to appeal a direction given by the leaders of the Jamaat, by Jamaat members or circuit and local Jamaat leaders? Mavi Saab, Mavi Shamsi Ojo, please will you help us attend to this question? Is it allowed to appeal a directive given by leaders of the Jamaat, by Jamaat members?
I'm listening, please continue.
Yes, is it allowed to appeal a direction given by the leaders of the Jamaat, by Jamaat members or circuit and local Jamaat leaders?
The question is not that of a yes or no, because the directive, I wouldn't know, might be a kind of punishment. That is, maybe after the member has done something wrong. So the circuit takes a step. Now, you don't appeal when you are already in the wrong. So that is why I said it is of two types. For example, so that we don't get it twisted, it was explained that in the Nizāme-Jama'at, if a decision is passed by Qadha, then you can appeal that same decision. According to the system, the first Qadha, the first hearing might have a single Qadha. Then after that, they will have 3. Then the maximum is 5. So after all these hearings, even if the person is not convinced, then you can send that case to the Khalifa. But these cases are not in case of punishment. It is like, for example, a hula. Maybe a lady wants to take divorce from the husband. Now, then a kind of reconciliation is put in place by the Jamaat, that it might be there are some aspects the woman has not understood, which to her it will ultimately cause some loss for the woman. So there will be some kind of sitting. But if it is in case of you are at fault already, then even you should be happy that the Jamaat is already giving you punishment, because it's a kind of, they are helping you to lessen your burden. So this kind of directives cannot be contested. For example, you act otherwise to the Nizam, and you still consider yourself to be a part of the Nizam. So if some kind of punishment, or let me say, I don't know, sanction is meted out to such an individual, so you don't appeal that.
Let's quickly take this last one. Movisa, please, let's take this last one. I think it's going to be a very short one. Hafizab, the question is pre-wedding photo shoot allowed before Nikah day? Hafizab, Hafiz Showan Bisai. I've forgotten Hafiz Shamsuddin. Hafiz Showan Bisai.
I'm with you.
Yes, is pre-wedding photo shoot? Is pre-wedding photo shoot allowed before Nikah?
Well, you see, we get so crazy with trend of what happens around us, forgetting that we are members of a glorified community. What they do outside, if then you remain there. But member of the community, what is the need of photo shoot? What is the need of after marriage? To the effect that Uzura said that wherever there is a male and female together in photo, it should not be used on social media. More especially, you want the Lajna that they should not use their pictures on this thing. You now take pictures with husband and wife, with family, female. Why are you going to put it on social media? So pre-marriage shoot I don't see any sense of it and approval of it in Ahmadiyya. If you take any picture, it's for your family consumption. It's not for every Dick, Tom, Harry, and Jack. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan. Inshallah, I won't be able to take more questions because we are quite approaching time for Salatul Zuhr, and Amir Sahib will want to close the program. I hereby call on Amir Sahib. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Tell all those that have not muted their phone to mute their phone.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Dr. Sahib, there are a lot of interruption coming in. Tell those hosts to mute those people that are not supposed to speak.
Okay, I will do that now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum
salam.
Okay, I couldn't hear the vote of thanks completion. I believe that has been taken.
No, sir. No, sir. The vote of thanks is the next.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let him go ahead with the vote of thanks. Naib Sarah Saab.
Okay, sir. All right, sir. So that's Naib Sarah Hadmi, Alhaji Abdurrahman Musa. Sir.
Yes, please go ahead. Alhaji Abdurrahman Musa, please go ahead. Sada Saab, is he online?
I can confirm now that I think Talk has taken him out. So Naib Sarah Southwest will do that now. He's doing that right away, sir.
Okay, all right. I'm not hearing him very clearly, but that's fine.
Okay. We are together here in Elaro, so he will do that now, sir.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir. All right, sir. Yes, sir. Does that sir? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Because Allah in His wisdom has created something beneath our skin called melanin. It protects the skin, particularly when you are exposed to ultraviolet rays. This is what protects the skin. When you use any skin lightening cream, anyone.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
We are expecting the vote of thanks.
Oh, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Respected Amir Sahib, respected Naibin Amir, respected Sadar Ansarullah, and other members in the workshop on behalf of the Sadar Majlis Kudam Lamadia Nigeria, respected Brother Abdurraqib Akemi Sahib, we most sincerely appreciate Almighty Allah for His benevolent mercies on us to wish to carry out this national workshop for this year. We thank Almighty Allah for His grace to carry out this program. We appreciate our father, respected Amir Sahib, for his fatherly role, for his Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan jazak.
My sister apologies. The network is not too favorable here.
No problem.
Yes,
no
sir.
problem. Jazakallah khairan jazak. And thank you very much. Jazakallah khairan. Now, yes, by way of closing remarks, let me thank everyone for the time taken. So my only point now is that I had a number of things I wanted to say before, but alhamdulillah, they have been covered from what I have heard about the tarbiyah specifically, about new converts, about finance. So all those things, we need to demonstrate excellent behavior. So the next thing, the only thing I want to add now is that all that we have had, please let us put it into practice so that we can truly activate the Nizāme-Jama'at in line with the wishes of His Holiness. May Almighty Allah bless you all. Amen. Please join me in silent prayers. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.